Hey everyone, Enda here, and we're just going to be having a little cozy chat. So get your cup of tea, you make sure that you have me on your stereo, all of that jazz. While you look out at the beautiful sunshine, the middle of summer, wherever you are, all of that jazz. We're just going to be having a little chat about the arenas and what they mean for PvP. What they mean for PvP. So this is going to be more of a... We're going to start at the very beginning, so I'll probably make timestamps for this, so check down below. And you can get all of those done and dusted, so you can kind of peruse the bits that you find particularly interesting. Because we'll probably start at the very, very basics. So when I say an arena, and I'll be talking about the Colosseum specifically here, but the notes I'll give will kind of be applicable for everything. When we say the arena, we're generally talking about the play area that's like designated. The community or the tourney organizers or the fight club organizers or whatever have kind of determined is the area. So like, let's say for example that in Dark Souls 3 you'd be going to Old Wolf, you know that you're not supposed to go down the elevator or you're not supposed to go up the stairs or something like that. It's very relatively simple. Players, generally speaking, will decide this amongst themselves. There'll be like unspoken or unwritten rules that people will determine, and that's more or less how it works. For more dedicated tournaments and stuff, it can be indicated by the glowstones, or it can be indicated by this, that, or the other. There's ways that people, but generally as a rule, in more competitive kind of PvP things, stuff, yokes, the abominations that it is that we create for these wonderful, wonderful video games. Everyone at that level generally knows you stand within a certain area. It's like how it is, and you're not allowed to go without the confines, or else there'll be punishments. There'll be this, that, or the other. So for the arena and for the den maps, that's not so much an issue because they're generally a confined space. There's only one way in and out, and ring outs are generally pretty clear. But for other arenas like Stormdale, it can get a little bit weird because how far up the up the little walkway is too far. So generally speaking, people will determine what's done there. So that's the generality. When I'm talking about an arena, I'm talking about a confined space that we decided. There you go. That's more or less it. And what makes that good or bad? There's a couple of different schools of thought. For starters, being too big, like Mag back in the day. I'm not sure how many people who played Mag are still actually playing. Who wouldn't already know all of this nonsense to begin with, but the main area gate was the dueling spot way back when. It was a large circle. I think it's actually... Was it larger? I'm not actually sure if it was larger than the current arena. It might actually be around the same size. Generally speaking, it's a flat plane with a little grace in the middle of it, and people used to put their signs down, and then we'd do honor duels there. That was like the general idea of main area gate. Kind of like Pontiff back in the day in Dark Souls 3, or Nightmare Frontier, although that's a little bit more unclear because there's no kind of selected boundaries per se. Chalice Dungeons in Bloodborne as well was another one. Being at Iron Keep the other day, making some noise, of course, in Dark Souls 2, and then you had other Fight Club areas and stuff like that. There was loads of different places that people have dueled over the years. And for them then, that was the designated arena. You want it to be not too big, and you want it to be not so small. So why does size matter? Well, size... choice words. Why does size matter? Yeah, we'll continue on with that one. Why does it matter? Well, for starters, one of the problems in Souls games, and it's kind of a problem in an awful lot of games, is that you need to force people to have to engage for one reason or another. And that's the first point. So in Souls, and I believe in even in RTSs at a high level, there's no real incentive to engage unless you've both kind of like handshook that that's what you're gonna do. So obviously players playing in certain environments are going to self-select for doing certain things. Like a ladder player is generally speaking, he's trying to get your health bar to 0. He's not just playing hide and seek or playing runaway or whatever. He or she is, or they are actively trying to win. They're trying to get your health bar to 0, so there's an incentive for you. Both of them have decided that you want to be close to each other so you can get those punishes, you can get the other person's health bar to 0, all of that good stuff. Someone in the arena, on the other hand, might not be playing for those same reasons, because there's no kind of, what's the word, there's no discrimination against play styles necessarily, or what, there's no discrimination in matchmaking even for people who just want to play hide and seek and do weird stuff. There's no discrimination there, so theoretically they can run away forever. There's also a time limit, so you get low enough you can also run away and it's not counted against your win-loss ratio or whatever. It's all good stuff. But in organized play specifically, you want to give people a reason to engage, and one of the ways you do that is by keeping the arena small so that you can't just run away forever. I might make an aside in a later date. We'll come back to this at another point of this as to shapes of arenas and what they give and what they don't. But for the most part, you want to have it small enough that people are actually able to engage each other. That's the first part. You don't want it so small that they can't avoid certain things. You want it that there's at least some means of people running away. For example, if I think about it, like, let's say, what would be a good example of it? So in Lake of Rot, for example, that's an arena that has been used. You know, you set down the big platform, people fight on those little platforms. You need to make specific rules that people can't just run into the massive lake, in order to maintain that people actually try and play the game, I guess. I think there was oh my god, it was just as a very quick aside. I remember casting one of the Back to Basics, I think it was, in the Lake of Rot arena. And was it Flues? I think it was Fluesutter decided to find a loophole, use Flame Cleanse Me, ran into the lake, and we had to call that set as a reset because of that particular exploit. So again, always remember that the arenas you choose may require different kind of like rules or different stipulations in terms of how you're supposed to do it. So in the base game arena, let's just start with that we don't want it to be too big or to have an ill-conceived area of where people can play. The arena is huge. Same with Mag. Those were both insanely large arenas. If someone didn't want to be hit, you would not hit them. Stalling out the game for the 3 minutes is also a huge thing that can be done. It's actually quite massive. So, keeping that in mind, that those larger arenas do not incentivize very engaged play, along with other rules and restrictions that you can add in, that's huge. So we don't want it too big. Why don't we want it too small then? I'm going to finish on that now. We have the thought. The thought has been grabbed. The reason we don't want it too small then is that certain setups become basically unbeatable. So in Old Patch specifically, unrestricted at the very least, something like, I don't know, Power Stance Great Spears became insanely powerful because there was no means of escaping it. No means at all. So people could catch you, and you would not be able to escape it. You were always in range, and they could take 10 steps forward, and you would be donezo. One of probably my greatest callback arenas, I love that arena so much, is the small little square just at the end of Upper Carrier Manor. So you go down the elevator, you look on your left if you're facing away from the elevator, and it's going to be just that little square there. Way too small. There's other things that become really powerful, such as Flaming Strike and other such things, that can basically pressure people infinitely. No good. You don't want that. The arena determines the meta to a huge degree. So for instance, with large arenas, we're looking at Kite as being a viable strategy that you can do. So, and I say Kite, I mean run away forever and just poke. So Runaway Mage, Runaway Whip, all of those things can become insanely powerful. And I say insanely powerful on an interaction to interaction basis. These things will still ultimately lose. However, they basically go up a tier by virtue of existing there, to put it in very simple terms. So size Again, size matters in determining the overall meta of the game. And on that note, I will talk about the Colosseum. The Colosseum is miles too big. Pressure does not exist. Status pressure doesn't exist. And when I say pressure, it's the ability for someone to engage someone and for them to feel a threat. The only reason you should ever really feel threat in the arena is just by virtue of, what would I even describe it as? You trying to play the game in a very specific way. You can just run away forever, and there's nothing anyone can do. Back in the mag days, there was a really funny gamer by the name of Filthy Animal on PC. I love him. All he would do was light roll with power stance pikes and just run away until you got close enough, you got annoyed enough, and then he would just press the L1 button, do an insane amount of damage, and then rinse repeat forever. You can do that in the arena, and on top of that, not only can you just do that, you can take an insane amount of damage, switch to in turbo regen. They call it cockroach mode in the business, because not even a nuclear blast to be able to take you out, and you can just run away forever. This is bad. The arena, for that reason, I do not think passes that check. There are other arenas that do. I think even to a certain respect, with certain restrictions on it, I think that something like Lake of Rock can even do better at that. It's disjointed, it's a weird shape, but it's pretty cool that you end up in the rod and then you take poison and then you can't bolus and then you have to do all get back into the arena and then take damage. There are ways to make arenas like that work. I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, you might as well go back to launch where Scott Jund was bloody well doing duels at first step, right? It's the nearest equivalent. If someone gets cornered against a wall in the arena, it's because they made a blunder, and I think that the game hurts as a result. Which moves us on to our next point wonderfully, which is the shape of the arena. Now, we're pretty limited in base game what you can have. So there's the is it Nokron? I think it's the name of the area is Nokron. There's an arena there, the Stormvale. And base game has a huge amount of variety in terms of shapes. I mentioned Lake of Rot earlier, Carrier Manor. You have squares, rectangles, disjointed weird things. You even have circles in main area gate in Raya Lucaria, and you also have what's the name of it? The words are hard. The name of that arena, the sewers. You have the sewer arena. We'll call it that. The name will hit me in a second. You also have that arena as well, which is huge. You have varieties in terms of where you can set up these events, or for casual duels, or for fight clubs, or whatever. And even then, there's this more arenas I could mention that would fall into that category. But on shape, I, as a general rule, do not like circles. It was okay in Bloodborne where you had the ability to gun pressure people, and again, I'm bringing back this idea of pressure, keeping people in danger. Shape, size, we've got size. Shape matters, in the sense that not having the ability to corner your opponent is a huge issue. Because again, we get back to that. If someone doesn't want to be hit, how do you put them in a position where they have to counter-aggress? So now we've talked about aggression and how anyone can really aggress anyone. How do you force your opponent to go, okay, I can't run away anymore. How on earth do I get this back? Well, you have a thing called a corner. Corner pressure is just a huge factor in these games. I think back to Dark Souls 3 and Old Wolf. You go to Pontiff, you can't corner pressure anyone for jack shit. Setups like Sword and Board then as a result struggled in that game. If I look at Elden Ring and I look at Flaming Strike, for example, than anything, it could be CGS off deck. One of the easiest ways to get damage off on that is to push someone into a corner, force them into a decision, do I go left or do I go right, and then Flaming Striking in the direction and hope you guess correctly. That's huge. It's having the ability to get that guaranteed damage because someone didn't either allowed you to aggress on them for free is insanely powerful. And I think that squares, rectangles, a cube, anything with the corner, even if it's only one corner in the entire arena, is huge, because it allows those people to get that aggression, be rewarded for that aggression in terms of future damage by pushing them putting baby into the corner, basically, for being bold and not actually respecting my space too much. Obviously, in certain matchups, that's a hurt, but I think that's a key. So why do I like small squares? And I say small, let's call them medium-sized, where you can do like a bunch of rolls either side. And why am I such a big fan of the den maps that they've put in terms of variations, in terms of sizes of arenas and stuff? Because, as I said earlier, we'll go back to those key points. It promotes aggression in terms of the size, in terms of the shape, and it negatively affects passivity in the sense that people cannot just do runaway forever. That's why I don't like, let's say, the base game arena, which is what's brought all of this on. It's too big. People can run away forever, and they can choose where they run away because of that. Most of it is circular, and even though it does have a corner, you would have to outplay someone so hard to push them into it, or alternatively, they would have to be so silly as to be pushed into it, that I think that it's a huge mistake. Huge mistake. And it's a reason why we don't use it. On both of those categories, it doesn't quite work. Another thing to keep in mind, this is a pet peeve. I haven't come across any den maps that have had this issue. They might exist, at least for the 1v1 maps. And I don't think it happens in Stormvale. There is some quirky geometry in the main arena. Have you ever done like a running attack and all of a sudden you just get caught in like one of the lips in one of the inner circles? Has that happened to anyone? It's happened to me. There's certain weird bits of geometry kind of scattered around that I just get caught in. And I can't help but wonder what on earth is going on there. That's a 3 strikes you're out kind of system. That's a 3 strikes you're out kind of system. Why? Why do you get caught in these things? If it does happen in some of the den maps or in any of the other arenas that I've mentioned, please let me know. I'm just perplexed. Why? Why FromSoft? Why have you done this? You made the game. What? People have said in comments, oh, I'm so happy you're so positive. Stuff like this makes me very unpositive, unhappy. I mauled, like you wouldn't believe sometimes, because of weird stuff like that. Now, the last thing I'm going to mention, I've kind of alluded to it before I go on another rant. One of the things to keep in mind is that all of the above that I've mentioned, except that last one, that's just it's just a pet peeve, will lead to the game being played in certain ways. I did allude to it earlier on when I said certain setups are going to do better than others. When you were choosing where an arena needs to be, and this is on FromSoft as well. I don't think they listen, but just so you're aware of why I reckon they've made the arena in the way they have, other than Reddit liked Mag, so we make that, and then Mag died the day the arena came out because it was awful. Not that the arena is much better. One of the decisions you have to make when allowing certain maps from a tourney organizer perspective, which is ITMA, is what kind of play do I want to kind of encourage. The reason I think that FromSoft make large arenas historically in all of their games is they're under the impression that they want every playstyle to be equally good, as opposed to discriminating against certain playstyles. I'm going to say this now, and I'm not going to be very maybe some of you might argue with me here. I don't think all arenas or all playstyles are made equally. I do not believe that is the case. I think you can have something that's mid AF as a bow build, and making that decent is a mistake. So in other games, you would say that like RTSs, like Kite is generally considered insane Kite, where you have access to super mobile stuff, and if someone doesn't build around it, they just lose. And even then, there's no guarantee in certain matchups that we'll be able to catch them. I'm thinking like Pistoliers into old Nurgle before. I haven't really played much since the book, but Pistoliers into Nurgle or Pistoliers into Vampire Counts, where you're forced to bring dogs just cause. If you don't build around them having that, you just insta lose, or you have an incredibly frustrating game of, even in a rule set, they run away for 20 minutes and there's nothing you can do about it except cry and flail at their box while half your mobility is just running around gormlessly trying to keep these dudes away from you. Frustrating. It is toxic to a certain degree. um, and I don't think that encouraging toxic playstyles, doable, it's not banned, but making them even better, I think, is a mistake. So that's kind of my closing thoughts. Making an environment where certain things that people find annoying are permitted, I don't think is a particularly good idea. If that's your playstyle, more power to you. The arena exists for a reason, and you know what? Take it into comp play and watch the competitive players mauled out of their skulls. I invite you to do it, please. Do pull a Shiroi in early 1.1 rule set and make them ban X setup. In her case, it was Twin Blades. Do it, please, please, please. I don't want to see that in the finals. But anyway, that's my little rant over. I love and appreciate you all. If you like the content, subscribe, follow me on Twitch. Join the tournaments, which we'll be hosting weeklies every Thursday from for now. That may change at some point when I figure out NA hours, but for now, every Thursday at, I think it's 6:30. Is it 6 o'clock I picked? I should probably check that. Oh no. Oh no, you're hearing me live. Unedited, unfiltered Enda, remembering what time he said. It's 5:30. Every Thursday at 5:30, we'll be doing beginners brackets. If you've no tournament experience, you're more than welcome. And if you have a little bit of tournament experience, don't have gotten to semis, and you'll be let in. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, I love you all. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful community. And yeah, take care. Have a good one. Mwah.